So it looks as though Restore Britain are going to make a run for their first by-election. So if you didn't know what was going on, of course, there's a lot of upheaval in the Labour Party. People are wanting Keir Starmer out, and the general consensus from the party seems like Andy Burnham is the guy they want to take over. But of course, he's the mayor, so someone had to stand down in their constituency and make room to trigger a by-election so Andy Burnham could run and hopefully, for the Labour Party's point of view, get elected, and then he can make his leadership bid for the Labour Party. But this, of course, also means that everyone else can run at that seat and have a go at trying to get elected themselves. Reform, of course, are going to put in, and Rupert Lowe came out a few days ago and announced that Restore Britain are going to run a candidate in the Makerfield by-election. Now, online, this has caused a bit of consternation, to be fair, a lot more than I was expecting. And the reason behind that is mainly Reform and Reform voters saying that Restore Britain is now going to split the right-wing vote, which is going to lead to Labour winning and Andy Burnham taking over. So what I thought I'd do is a little bit of pros and cons, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing for Restore Britain and the right in general. Starting with the cons, because yes, this is going to split the right-wing vote. And that is, even if Restore don't do particularly well, they are going to take Reform voters away from them. And from a Reform point of view, I really do understand this and get the frustration in it. The other issue is, this is a really big ask because they've just put all of their eggs into the local elections, which is fair enough, and there is less than a month to prepare for this, so they've got a lot of work to do in that month, out canvassing, raising awareness for Restore as a vote. And of course, they've never challenged for a by-election, so there's going to be issues that pop up from that as well. The fact that the branches are only just getting set up, so the infrastructure might not be to the top level that they need to run for these elections successfully. And for Restore, the gamble also could backfire because they could have a similar issue like Advance had in Gorton and Denton. And if you didn't realise what happened there, and this is no shot at Advance or their voters, but Advance ran a local candidate who was well known in the community and was probably the strongest candidate they could field. And he did a lot of charity work, he was well known, and they still only got 150 votes, something like that, in the entire by-election. I think they finished like 7th in the overall, and they even finished behind some joke parties, and it really kind of took the wind out of the sails of Advance as a party, because people were kind of seeing them at one point as a further right alternative to Reform, and then this election came and it kind of showed that they're not ready to really campaign as a party and they're just not known. So if Restore had a similar turnout where they just proved that outside of Great Yarmouth they're not an electoral force, that can put a real dent in their momentum that has been really building really strongly. And just a side note, I really do wish Reform or Restore someone had a name that sounded different, because it's really hard not to trip up on my words constantly. But anyway, let's get on to the pros. And to be honest, I think there's a lot more pros than cons. First of all, this is practice. I mean, I understand where people are saying split the right vote, but Restore need to start practicing for eventually a general election in a few years. You know, what does it take to run a campaign for a by-election as opposed to local elections? How do you pick your candidate? What are the policies that you want to highlight for this particular type of election? And can they mobilise in different areas outside of Great Yarmouth? This will also be a chance to see how well known and popular Rupert is or Restore is in different parts of the country, and that'll give them a bit more of a barometer to see how far they need to go, or if they're where they need to be able to campaign when general election time comes. And on that point, what'll be interesting is if they see a turnout similar like they did in Great Yarmouth, where there was a lot more people coming out to vote that hadn't voted before, who were disenfranchised, who thought maybe Reform were going to be the answer and then they didn't, so now they're going to go to Restore. So it might not necessarily split the vote in the way that people are thinking, because they might be able to bring in some people that never voted before, similar like they did in Great Yarmouth, where the turnout was double to what the last local elections that were held there was. On the infrastructure I mentioned, there is a branch there that has been set up. How long ago that got set up, I don't know. it's going to be a maximum of a few weeks because they've only been a party for a few months and the branches are only just now going up. But the fact that there is infrastructure there means there's potential candidates to pick from and people who are willing to get out and get involved. And as for Makerfield itself, it's a working class town and it's not a slam dunk for Labour. And I wonder if this will kind of annoy the local people because they've kind of been used as a pawn in Labour's leadership battles. The person that got elected into the seat has just resigned, so he can effectively get someone in that he wants to then run for the leadership of the country. I don't know, if I was me and I was living there and that had happened, I would feel kind of like a pawn in the Labourship mess of a game, which I think is more broadly going to play into the arms of the other parties. And on that point, because it's going to be Andy Burnham, it's going to have a lot of media fanfare around it. There's going to be a lot of coverage. This is going to be in the news cycle over and over again over the next few weeks. And in that fact means that Restore, as we know, have been ignored basically by everyone more or less. And if they run in this and they do well, it'll force the media to have to talk about them and they'll start to become a more notoriable brand within British politics. And can you just imagine if they won? I mean, the absolute meltdown that Westminster and the mainstream media would all have, it would really send the shiver down their spine. And it would really buoy all the grassroots activists for Restore. And it would be mental. And then they would ultimately finish with someone representing them in the Houses of Commons, which is exactly what the ultimate goal is at the end of the day. And just talking on this bit of splitting the vote because they don't want Burnham to get in. I understand. I don't really like Andy Burnham. He's further left than Keir Starmer. And, he might do more damage than a dithering Keir Starmer might do because he's certainly more a man of his convictions. And I think if he wants to get stuff done, he will get it done, which is, of course, a worry because I don't know if his left-wing communist-style politics is what's going to help the country at the moment. But just saying that Burnham doesn't win and they end up with Wes Streeting in charge, I mean, is that any better? The guy literally said a couple of days ago that he wants to rejoin the EU. That is literally going against what the majority of the country voted for all those years ago. And just think of all the upheaval if there was another referendum and what would happen. It would just be terrible. So is not having Andy Burnham as the Prime Minister for a few years as important as people are making out? I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. So in conclusion, I don't think it's up to Restore to worry about helping reform. If they've got designs on winning the general election, they need to start practicing. They need to start getting their foot in the door, and this is a way. And now don't get me wrong when I'm saying that. I wish the right would unite a lot more. I think a fractured right is exactly what the left-wing politics has done and done on purpose. But particularly between Rupert and Nigel and Zia Youssef and stuff, there will never be reconciliation. They will never be working together for the greater good because too much has happened. There's been too much time has passed, too many bad feelings, and these guys will just never get on and they will battle and will be rivals over the next few years into the general election. And the right side of politics is going to be between Restore, Reform and the Conservatives. And no amount of annoyance online and disappointment that they're all going against each other is going to change that, unfortunately. And ultimately, let's not forget, the people of Makerfield, they're the ones who get to make this decision, and I think they deserve to have every option available for them to select. So, we will see what happens over the next few weeks. I will keep you posted and subscribe.